We've got local wins for drone pilots, a real-world rescue, some legit DJI discounts, and a couple of leaks that could shape what creators buy next. So let's jump in. More places to fly is the kind of news that I wish we got every week, especially here in Las Vegas where I live. Now, this one's real, and it's a measurable win for recreational drone pilots. Clark County updated its drone and UAV operating policy and expanded the list of county parks where recreational pilots are allowed from 8 to 28 parks. That's a huge change for locals because the city of Las Vegas still bans drone operations on city park property, including parking lots and anywhere inside the parks. So for a lot of people here in the Valley, county parks are the main legal option for takeoff and landing. The bigger point here is actually about how it happened. Local pilots didn't just wait around for a top-down policy review. Groups like Vegas Drone Meetup and LVH Drone Pilots showed up at a county commission meeting and pushed for more access. That matters because the FAA controls the airspace, but counties and cities control where you can launch and recover from. So if you want more places to fly, local government is often where the fight actually gets won. Now, the county's older policy dated back to 2019, and it only allowed flying at a short list of parks. For a county that covers over 8,000 square miles and has more than 2 million people living in it, that limited list never made a lot of sense here on the ground. Now, with the updated policy, Clark County is adding 20 new parks to the approved list. And I'm not going to read every park name like it's a roll call, but the practical takeaway is simple. If you live out in Summerlin or Henderson or Spring Valley or up in Centennial Hills, you have a much better chance of having an approved spot within a reasonable drive to fly your drone. There's also a detail here that makes day-to-day flying easier. Some of those newly approved parks sit near what pilots call zero grid, meaning they're in uncontrolled airspace where you don't need link authorization. So for quick recreational flights, that removes an extra step. But there is still a catch. The updated policy keeps a key restriction from earlier versions. Smaller drones designed for racing or maneuver-focused flying still require a special use permit from the Parks and Recreation Department. So if you fly FPV or you lean towards racing or aggressive movement, then you need to pay attention to how the county defines the category before you assume covered. And none of this replaces federal rules. You still have to follow FAA recreational guidelines, remote ID requirements when they apply, and whatever state and other local rules come with each individual location. Park hours also matter, and there are many Clark County parks that run roughly from early morning to late evening. Now, what I love about this story is what it signals. It's expansion, not contraction. It shows when local pilots show up and make reasonable cases, access can actually improve. So I want more counties to take notes from this approach, from my county, because most of our real world flying gets decided at park departments and commission meetings. So if your area has been shrinking flight options lately, this is proof that organized local advocacy can actually move the needle. Now, before we get to the next story, I want to mention that I do get a lot of questions about gear, so I do keep a full list below. It covers all the cameras, lenses, audios, and accessories that I use, and it's not just a wish list, it's all the stuff that I actually use. Now, those links are affiliate links, meaning that the channel does earn a small commission, but there's no extra cost to you. So if you're curious at what I'm shooting with, or you want to dig into my setup, that's the easiest place to find everything in one spot. Now, next is a bit of a feel-good story. A missing kid in winter conditions is the kind of thing that can turn really bad really fast. And this is exactly why police departments keep investing in drones with thermal cameras. Now, this is another story from the folks over at Drone XL. Ocean Township Police in New Jersey launched a DJI Matrice 30T on a Thursday evening search and located a missing 13-year-old boy in 17 minutes. Officers used the Life360 data to narrow down the search area. Then they put the drone up to cover ground quickly as daylight faded and the temperature started to drop. Now, that department has 3 FAA licensed pilots in that department, and they deployed the Matrice 30T because it packs multiple sensors in one platform in a way that fits public safety work really well. Now, the reason that those details are kind of important here is that the Matrice 30T gave the officers both standard visual cameras and thermal imaging in one unit. And that thermal camera can pick up heat signatures when visibility drops or when someone hides like under a tree. And in this case, officers found the teen hiding in dense trees along a bulkhead near a frozen oyster creek. And the location matters as well because ground conditions were starting to get hazardous. And the location here matters as well. Dense woods plus the icy banks of a creek can slow teams down in doing that kind of responder work. And from above, thermal imaging can turn what looks like darkness into something readable and something to act on. So the department brought its drone using federal grant funding. And while this was reportedly the first time using it to locate a missing child, they've already used it on suspect searches and other calls involving missing people. So 17 minutes from launch to recovery is an outcome that most agencies want every time they send people into cold weather searches. And this is one of those stories where the tech doesn't feel like a gadget, it feels like time saved and a life saved. But moving from the life-saving opportunities that drones give us, let's talk about prices. And we're gonna talk about this story all at the exact same time that like tariffs are back in the news with Supreme Court decisions here in the United States. But if you've been waiting for an excuse to grab a small DJI drone without spending a lot of money, this might be the week. I've got 3 deals that I want to mention. I don't know how long they're going to last. But I had to bring them up. One of the stand-up discounts is actually on the Flip, and the Flip with the 2 battery bundle. Right now it's $329 without a controller. So depending on what you've already got in the controller department, that might be something that you want to take a look at. Right, this is a beginner drone. And again, it doesn't include a controller because honestly, you can fly it from your phone for simple shots. It does come with enclosed prop guards built into the body, which helps you from, bumping into stuff. And it does include their 3D sensing system to brake automatically to avoid crashes in lower light situations. Now that doesn't make it crash proof, right? But it's a little bit lower stress for newer pilots. Next, the Neo has dropped to $150. Now again, that's just the drone, not the drone with a controller. The Neo's 135 grams, so you don't need FAA registration, and it's great for first-time buyers. But there are other Neo bundles in this category as well. There's a 3 battery controller-free combo at $219, and there's a version that does come with the RC-N3 for $259 if you do want the dedicated controller. There's also a Fly More combo with the motion controller at $399 that includes the goggles and the controller if you want that fully immersive style flying system. And then lastly, I want to mention the Avata 2. The Explorer combo has been discounted by about $140. So if you've been curious about the more approachable FPV side of things, those are discounts worth taking a look at. Now, I'll keep this part simple. I'm not here to sell you on anything. I like to let people know when prices are good because I'm a pretty price conscious buyer. And I like telling people because I watch this stuff all the time. Those are likely going to be affiliate links, so I might make a commission on them. But either way, I would just wanted to let people know that in some cases, you still can get good prices on DJI gear. Now, our next story is not about discounts. It's about trust. And it's about what happens when a company markets a drone as an alternative to DJI. And then Texas is suing them now. So this is from Drone DJ. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, he filed a lawsuit against Anzu Robotics over allegations that they have deceived consumers about the origins, firmware, and data practices of the Raptor T drone. Now, the core allegation is that it's effectively a Mavic 3 that's been painted green, and the state frames it as a consumer deception as well as a national security concern. So now Texas is laying out several technical claims in its filing. The state alleges that the internal hardware matches exactly the Mavic 3 Enterprise. They allege that the firmware is signed and encrypted using DJI's keys, and that the remote controller appears to be a relabeled RC Pro with software components that rely heavily on DJI's SDK. Now, one of the more important points in the complaint involves the firmware signing keys. They're alleging that DJI is maintaining control of the root crypto that's used to sign the firmware, and that it can undercut the claims of an independent control of this product. Now, Anzu has acknowledged that it's licensing gear from DJI. That's not new. The licensing and white label arrangements right? That type of stuff exists pretty much everywhere. And the legal question that Texas is pushing is whether Anzu clearly disclosed how deep that relationship goes and if it marked itself as an American-aligned alternative when really it's just rebranded DJI gear. Texas is targeting the marketing language around their data practices specifically with claims like your data is your data and arguing that technical architecture could create a pathway for access similar to concerns raised around DJI more broadly. Now, whether or not those concerns are real or not, I'm going to leave that to you. At this stage, they're allegations, not court findings. The lawsuit seeks civil penalties up to $10,000 per violation, injunctive relief, and the court, or requesting the court to clear all of those disclosures up and basically announce that the Raptor T is just a rebranded DJI drone. Now, for enterprise and government buyers, this could get serious if regulators treat Anzu as a functional equivalent of DJI under existing restrictions. Agencies and contractors could face compliance issues depending on where and how they deploy them. This case sits right at the intersection of supply chains, licensing deals, and national security policies. So if you bought into Anzu specifically to avoid DJI-related restrictions, this lawsuit is something that you'll want to track closely as it moves through court. Now let's move on to something a little bit lighter, but important if you follow FPV gear. The Avata 360 story keeps getting louder, and we have two sources pointing at some basic timelines. Now this is coming from both Daily Camera News and Drone XL with leaks inside of DJI goggles beta software showing an instructional clip for battery insertion along with an official looking box image that points towards an Avata 360 launch window in March of this year. That's next month. Both sources describe it as DJI's move into the 60 FPV style drone concept market, although none of this counts as official until we get it from DJI. Now, the design details matter because they hint at what DJI might want people to use it for. Coverage is describing a Cinewhoop-style frame that looks slightly larger than the Avata 2 and reportedly has a full spherical guard around props. So promo images also show what look like a dual camera sensor, top and bottom, both sources repeating the 8K at 60 frames per second HDR panorama video claim as part of the rumored positioning. Now, if that ends up being accurate, then this isn't just an FPV move, it's an immersive capture system similar to what we have from Insta360 in the A1. Now, compatibility also looks like a big part of the story as the leak coverage is pointing to support for DJI's existing goggles N3, along with motion controllers and the RC2 controller. Now, if that holds up, then existing RC controller users and just DJI users in general wouldn't need to replace everything, but just add this drone to their existing system. Now, there's some price talk out there too, including bundle pricing expectations, but until DJI confirms anything publicly, I want to treat price as the least reliable part of the whole conversation, as it's been sort of all over the place. The main thing that I take from these leaks is the timing and the intent. March sounds like a window that people should watch. DJI seems interested in blending the FPV style and the 360 style creatively, instead of those being two separate worlds. So watch that space closely, because I think we're all pretty much expecting DJI to respond to Insta360's foray into the drone world with their 360 unit, the A1. But speaking of Insta360, they may have just stepped into another area where DJI is kind of dominant with something that looks like it wants to live in your pocket and start filming immediately. And yes, it is a very distinctive look. Now, Drone XL says that the Insta360, their CEO, confirmed a new product called Luna at the company's annual meeting. He said it will launch in the first half of 2026, and the positioning is clear, even without anyone saying it out loud. Luna lines up against the expected timing for DJI's next Osmo Pocket camera. Now, the most obvious detail is design. Luna has a dual lens front layout that gives it a very different face compared to a typical pocket gimbal camera. And beyond looks, there's mentions of a modular concept with interchangeable components. That part sits in leak territory right now, so I would treat the modularity possibility as not confirmed, at least until we see guaranteed hardware from Insta360. Pricing rumors in the details that we have put Luna somewhere between $499 and $699, and if Insta360 lands inside that range with strong stabilization, solid image quality, then Luma becomes less of an experiment and more of a direct competitor for creators who would normally default to a Pocket from DJI. There's also an ecosystem angle here. Insta360 already plays well with its own accessories and audio options across products like its 360 cameras and creator-focused models. If Luna plugs into that same ecosystem cleanly, then it could appeal to people who want one brand across camera types and systems. Now, whether Luna wins or not depends on execution, not personality, or even really industrial design, but competition helps everyone who buys cameras for real work because it forces better features, better pricing across the board. Now, real quick, I just want to say, if you want to support this channel, there are a few things that can really make a difference. Watching videos all the way to the end. That signals to YouTube that the content's worth showing to more people and showing strong retention signals from viewers like you. Liking, commenting, and sharing. That also reinforces that signal. Short comments help more than you'd think. Subscribing and turning on notifications also helps, and it helps you make sure that you catch new uploads. For those who want to support even more directly, channel memberships help fund extra content, early access, and behind the scenes posts. Super chats and super thanks are another way to none of this is required, but it helps keep the channel going. And I really next, the big story at the end here, DJI's Pocket line might get split into two models, and it looks like the leaks are holding up, with one version looking almost unchanged while the other version being a bit more ambitious. Now, this is coming from a couple of different sources, including DroneXL and Petapixel, with FCC filings showing DJI certified two separate Osmo Pocket 4 models, similar to what we have on the Osmo Mobile. But it indicates that we got some distinctive devices cleared for sale in the United States. The filing lists a 1500 milliamp hour battery for the Pocket Pro, which lines up with the Pocket 4 battery chatter that's been floating around. Now, on top of those filings, Petapixel is pointing to a video that showed what someone claimed was an Osmo Pocket 4 inside of a DJI authorized store in Malaysia before that clip got deleted online. But in that video, the device looks very similar to a Pocket 3, including what appears to be a single camera head rather than the dual camera setup that we've seen rumored. There's still some physical differences worth noting on that unit though. The video shows what looks like an optional LED light attached near the gimbal elbow. Now, that would make practical sense for close range vlogging in darker environments, but it also appears that there's two buttons tucked under the flip screen. Their function wasn't super clear from what we saw in the description, but the same reporting also ties to claimed specs for the standard 4 Type 1 CMOS sensor, 4K 120, and weighing at 179 grams, just like the Pocket 3. So if you zoom out, you get two parallel threads. One thread suggesting an incremental standard Pocket update that focuses maybe on usability, battery life, lighting options. The other suggesting that DJI has certified a separate Pro model under its own FCC ID that could represent something more than just minor with a dual camera setup. Now, if you shoot with Pocket cameras today, this is going to be one worth watching because it hints at choice instead of just one default upgrade path. So if you've thought on whether or not a Pocket gimbal camera is right for you, or battery life or lighting are an issue, drop a comment below and tell me what would actually move the needle on this for you. Now, that's it for me for today. If you want to support what I'm doing here, I've got memberships, super chats, gifts all available. All my links down below to follow me everywhere that I am, including links to all the gear that I talk about, all the gear that I use. Those links do help the channel. And as always, the easiest way to support the channel is to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Those are always free and they go a long way to helping me grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.